Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the story of the Great Grass Plains and the people who made a home there. The sun is sinking low in the sky. The air is turning cold river. It feels like ice against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the fields like a cold river, finding every gap in your clothes. You can hear the dry grass snapping under your boots. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are standing in a place where the world feels too big. For days and weeks, you have been moving across the land in a wagon. The wheels have been making a steady sound. Creak, creak, creak. The iron rims of the wheels have been biting into the dirt. But now the wagon has stopped. The oxen are tired. Their breath comes out in white clouds in the chilly air. You step down from the wagon and your feet hit the ground for the last time today. This is the spot. This is where you will stay. You look around. In every direction there is grass. It is not like the grass in a small garden or a park. This grass is tall. It comes up to waist. It is yellow and brown because the autumn has come. When the wind blows, the grass moves in waves. It looks like the waves of a giant golden ocean. It goes on forever until it touches the blue of the sky. There is one thing you notice right away. It is something that makes your heart feel a little heavy. There are no trees. Not one. Back in the east where you came from, there were big woods. There were oaks and pines. You could use those trees to build a cabin. You could cut logs and stack them high to keep out the cold. But here, the land is flat and bare. There is nothing but the earth and the sky. A long time ago, people who saw this place called it the Great American Desert. They thought nothing could live here because it was so dry and empty. But as you stand here, you see that it is not empty at all. It is full of life, but it is a different kind of life. It is a life that hides in the ground. You feel the wind again. It is a strong wind. It does not have any buildings or hills to stop it. It just keeps coming. It pulls at your clothes. You reach up to fix your sunbonnet. This is a special hat made of thick cloth. It has a big front to shade your eyes and a long piece of fabric in the back to cover your neck. It protects you from the burning sun during the day and the biting wind in the evening. You pull the strings a little tighter under your chin. The cloth feels rough against your skin, but it is warm. The sun is almost gone now. The sky is turning a deep purple color. In the distance, you see a hawk circling. It is looking for a mouse in the grass. The world is very quiet. There are no city sounds here. There are no bells or shouting people. There is only the sound of the wind in the dry grass. It sounds like a long, soft breath. Shh. You walk a few steps away from the wagon. You want to feel the soil under the grass. You bend down and push the tall blades aside. The ground is hard. It is covered in a thick mat of roots. These roots have been growing for hundreds of years. They are tangled together like a very strong carpet. You try to poke the ground with a small stick, but the stick snaps. The earth is tough. It is like a wall that is lying flat on the ground. You realize that if you want to stay warm, you cannot build a house on the land. There is no wood for that. You will have to build your house of the land. You will have to use the very dirt under your feet. It feels strange to think about. Back home, dirt was something you cleaned off your floor. Here, dirt will be your floor, your walls, and your roof. You look back at your wagon. It looks very small in the middle of this big flat world. Inside the wagon, there are a few tools. There is a shovel and a heavy plow. There is a small stove made of black iron. These are the things that will help you survive. You think about the night ahead. It will be very cold. You will sleep under the heavy blankets in the wagon tonight, but tomorrow the work begins. You take a deep breath. The air is very clean. It smells like dry earth and cold water. You look at the horizon. The line where the earth meets the sky is very sharp and clear. There is a sense of peace here, even if it feels a bit scary. You are the only person for miles. You are a watchman of this new land. You stand very still for a moment. You just listen. You listen to the grass. You listen to the cries. You feel the weight of the silence. It is a big silence that fills up your ears. It makes you feel very small, but also very calm. You think about the people who will come after you. You think about how this big, empty place will one day have farms and roads. But for now, it is just you and the grass. You are the first one to arrive at this little patch of the world. You have to find a way to make it kind to you. You have to learn the rules of the land. The first rule is that the wind is the boss. It will try to blow you away. It will try to freeze you. The second rule is that the sun is strong. It will try to burn you. To survive, you must find a way to hide. You must go down into the earth where the wind cannot find you and the sun cannot reach you. You walk back to the wagon. The oxen are settled now. They are chewing slowly. Their big brown eyes look at you in the fading light. They are waiting for you to lead them. You pat the side of the wagon. The wood is dry and grey from the sun. Tomorrow you will start to dig. You will find a spot where the land rises up a little bit. You will find a slope that faces the south. But for now, the darkness is coming. The first stars are starting to poke through the purple sky. They look like tiny bright holes in a dark blanket. You climb back into the wagon and pull the heavy quilt up to your chin. It smells like home, like lavender and old soap. It is a good smell. It reminds you that even in this big, empty place, you have brought a little bit of comfort with you. You close your eyes. The wagon rocks just a tiny bit as the wind pushes against the canvas cover. It feels like being in a small boat on a very quiet sea. You are safe for tonight. You are warm. The earth is waiting for you. The grass is whisking for you. The grass is whispering its secrets. You drift off to sleep, thinking about the heavy bricks of dirt you will cut tomorrow. You think about the home you will build out of the very ground you are resting on. The watch has begun. You are the guardian of this small space. The stars are watching over you, and the deep, old roots of the prairie are holding the world steady beneath you. Everything is as it should be. The journey is over, and the new life is about to start. The night is long, but you are ready. You are part of the plains now. You belong to the grass, and the grass belongs to you. The morning light is thin and pale as it comes through the canvas of your wagon. It is not a bright yellow light yet. It is more like the color of a pearl. You wake up and feel the weight of the heavy wool blankets on your chest. For a moment, you forget where you are. Then you hear it. The wind. It is a low hum against the side of the wagon. You remember. You are on the Great Plains. You are in your new home, even if that home is just a wagon for now. You pull your boots on. The leather is cold and a bit stiff. You have to tug hard to get your heels in. You reach for your heavy wool coat. This coat is special. It is made of thick, dark blue wool, and it has large wooden buttons. It is a frock coat, the kind of sturdy clothing a man wears when he has a lot of hard work to do. You feel the weight of it on your shoulders. It is like a warm hug. You step out of the wagon and the cold air hits your face. It wakes you up better than a splash of water. The sun is just starting to peek over the edge of the world. It looks like a glowing orange coin. But even with the sun coming up, the air is sharp. You look to the north. That is where the cold comes from. The wind from the north is like a sharp knife. It travels all the way down from the icy mountains and the flat, frozen lands far away. There is nothing to stop it. No trees, no big rocks, no cities. It just rolls over the grass like a giant wheel. You know that you cannot stay in the wagon forever. The winter will come soon, and the wagon is too thin. The wind would go right through the cloth. You need a place that is solid. You need a place that can hide you from that north wind. You begin to walk. Your boots make a soft crunch, crunch sound on the frosty grass. The frost looks like tiny diamonds scattered on the ground. You are looking for something very specific. You are looking for a rise. A rise is just a small hill, a place where the land goes up and then down again. On this flat plain, even a small hill is a very big deal. As you walk, you keep your back to the north. You want to find a slope that faces the south. Why the south? Because the south is where the sun spends most of its time. In the winter, the sun stays low in the sky. If your house faces south, the sun will shine right into your door. It will help keep you warm, and the hill behind you on the north side will act like a big, thick wall. It will catch the wind and throw it over your head. This is a simple trick that people have used for a long, long time. They call it working with the land. You walk for a mile, then two. The grass is tall and dry. Sometimes you see a small hole in the ground where a prairie dog lives. They are clever little animals. They live underground because they know it is the safest place to be. You think to yourself that you are not so different from them. You are both looking for a way to stay out of the storm. Finally you see it. There is a gentle curve in the land. It is not a mountain. It is not even a big hill. It is just a long, slow rise that looks like the back of a sleeping giant. You walk up to the top of it. From here, you can see even further. The world looks like a giant gold plate under the morning sky. You turn around and look at the south side of this small hill. It feels different here. The wind is still blowing, but it feels softer. The hill is blocking the worst of the cold. You walk down the slope a little bit. You find a spot that feels right. You stand there for a minute, just feeling the ground under your feet. You reach into your pocket and pull out a small tool. It is a simple piece of string with a heavy lead weight on the end. This is called a plumb line. It is a very old tool used by builders for thousands of years. You hold the top of the string and let the weight hang down. The weight pulls the string perfectly straight, pointing right at the center of the earth. You use this to see how steep the hill is. You want a slope that is just right, not too flat, but not too steep. You find a good spot and sit down on the dry grass. You take off your hat and let the sun hit your forehead. The sun is higher now and it feels good. It is a gentle warmth. This is the simple historical fact of the plains. The best way to survive was to stop fighting the environment and start using it. The earth is a great blanket. If you go inside it, it stays about the same temperature all year round. It stays cool when the summer is burning, and it stays warm when the winter is freezing. You sit very still, you do not move a muscle, you just listen. At first, you hear the wind, but then you start to hear the smaller sounds. You hear the dry grass stalks rubbing together. It sounds like 1,000 tiny fans. You hear a small bird chirping somewhere far away. You hear the sound of your own breath. In this big, wide world, the silence is not empty. It is full of the sound of the earth living its life. You feel a sense of peace. You have found your spot. You have found the place where you will build your first home. This home will be a dugout. It is exactly what it sounds like. You will dig a hole into the side of this south-facing slope. It will be like a cave, but a cave that you make yourself. The back wall and the side walls will be the earth itself. You won't have to build them out of wood or stone. The earth will hold you. You look at the ground. You imagine where the door will be. You imagine a small window made of paper. You imagine a fire in the corner with the smoke going up through a hole in the roof. It will be small. It will be dark. But it will be yours. And more importantly, it will be warm. You think about the work ahead. It will be very hard. You will have to move tons of dirt with just a spade and your own strength. Your back will ache. Your hands will get blisters and calluses. But as you sit there on the warm, south-facing grass, you don't feel tired yet. You feel hopeful. You feel like you have made a friend in this hill. It is going to protect you. You stand up and put your hat back on. You pick up your plumb line and put it back in your pocket. You mark the spot by pushing a tall stick into the ground. You will come back here tomorrow with the oxen and the plough. You will start the big task of turning this hill into a house. You start the walk back to the wagon. The walk feels shorter now because you have a plan. You are not just a person lost in the grass anymore. You are a builder. You are a person who has chosen a piece of the world to look after. The sun is now high in the sky and the frost has melted away. The grass is no longer white. It is a deep, rich gold. You take a deep breath of the cold air. It tastes like the future. You are ready to begin. The land is waiting, and you have found the perfect place to start your story. The next morning, you wake up before the sun has even thought about rising. The world is a deep, dark blue. You reach for your boots, and this time, you do not mind the cold leather. You have a big job today. You are going to start the real work. You are going to dig. You eat a quick breakfast of hard biscuit and a bit of dried meat. It is simple food, but it gives you the energy you need for the long hours of lifting and throwing. You lead the oxen back to the spot you marked yesterday. The tall stick is still there, standing straight in the wind. You have brought your best tools. You have a heavy iron spade with a wooden handle that has been smoothed by years of work. You also have a small, flat stone in your pocket. This is a whetstone. It is a sharpening stone used to keep the edge of your spade as sharp as a knife. Every few minutes you will take it out and rub it against the metal. Scritch, scritch, scritch. The sound is sharp and clean. A sharp spade is the difference between a good day of work and a day that breaks your back. You stand at the south-facing slope. You use your boots to mark out a rectangle on the ground. It is not a big space. It is about 8 feet wide and 10 feet long. To a person from the city, this would look like a tiny closet, but to you, it is going to be a fortress. You stand in the center of your rectangle and take a deep breath. You push the spade into the earth. The first thing you feel is the roots. The grass on top is just the beginning. Beneath the surface, the roots are thick and tangled. They are like a giant net made of wire. You have to push down hard with your foot on the shoulder of the spade. You hear a sound like tearing cloth. Rip, rip. This is the sound of the prairie resisting you. It does not want to be opened. It has been closed for thousands of years. You cut around the edges of a small square of dirt. Then you lean back on the handle. The earth gives way with a heavy thump. You lift the first piece of sod. It is heavy, much heavier than you expected. It is a solid block of dirt held together by those strong, hairy roots. You carry it a few steps away and set it down carefully. You do not throw it away. On the plains, nothing is wasted. You will need these blocks later to build up the front wall. For the first hour, the work is slow. You are mostly cutting through the sod, which is the top layer of grass and roots. But as you get deeper, the soil changes. It becomes darker and more moist. The smell changes too. Up on the surface, the air smells like dry hay and wind. Down here, just a few inches below the surface, it smells like ancient things. It smells like damp caves and rich black life. It is a heavy, honest smell. As you dig, your body begins to warm up. You take off your heavy wool coat and lay it on the grass. You are working in your shirt sleeves now. The sweat starts to run down your back, even though the air is still chilly. You can feel your muscles working. Your shoulders, your lower back, your arms, they all feel the weight of the earth. But it is a good feeling. It is the feeling of building something that will last. A simple historical fact about these first homes is that many families lived in these dugouts for a long time. Some stayed in them for 3 or 4 years while they saved money to buy wood or stone for a real house. But many people found that they liked the dugout better. It was the only place on the plains where the wind truly stopped. By noon, you have dug a hole that is about knee-deep. You take a break and sit on the edge of your new hole. You let your legs hang down into the cool, dark earth. You take out your whetstone and start to sharpen the spade again. Scritch, scratch. You look at the metal blade. It is shining where the dirt has polished it. You look across the plains. From this low position, the world looks different. The grass seems even taller. You are starting to sink into the land. You are becoming part of the hill. You take a drink of water from your tin canteen. The water is cool and it tastes of the metal, but it is the best thing you have ever tasted. You jump back into the hole and continue. Now that you are past the roots, the digging gets a little easier. The soil is more like clay here. It is packed tight, but it comes away in large, clean chunks. You use a rhythm. Step on the spade, lean back, lift and throw. Step, lean, lift, throw. Your mind starts to wander as your body does the work. You think about how strange it is that you are making a home by taking things away. Usually, you build a house by adding things, bricks, wood, nails. But here, you are building by removing. You are carving a space out of the world. The hole gets deeper. Now, it is up to your waist. When you stand in the middle of it, the wind passes right over your head. It is suddenly very quiet. The hill is acting like a giant earmuff. The roar of the wind is gone, replaced by a soft whistling sound far above you. You stop for a moment of silence. You lean against the dirt wall of your hole. The earth is cool against your back. You look up. The sky is a perfect bright blue rectangle. A white cloud drifts across the opening. You feel very safe down here. It is like being in a giant's hand. The earth is thick and solid. You know that no matter how hard the wind blows tonight, it cannot move this hill. It cannot knock down these walls of living soil. You look at the walls you have carved. They are not perfectly smooth, but they are strong. You can see the different layers of the earth. There is the dark topsoil, then a layer of lighter brown clay, and then bits of yellow sand. It is like looking at a history book of the land. Each layer represents hundreds of years of dust and rain and growing things. The sun is starting to move toward the west. The shadows are getting long. You decide to do just 1 more hour of digging. You want the hole to be deep enough so that you can stand up inside it and still have the roof over your head. You work faster now, the spade moving in a steady blur. The pile of dirt outside the hole is growing into a small mountain. When the sun finally touches the horizon, you stop. You are covered in dust. Your hands are dirty and there is grit in your hair. But you look down at what you have done. You have moved tons of earth. You have created a space where there was only solid ground before. You climb out of the hole. Your legs feel a bit heavy, like they're made of lead. You pick up your coat and your tools. You look back at your work. In the fading light, the hole looks like a dark mouth in the side of the hill. It doesn't look like much yet, but it is a start. It is the beginning of your architecture of survival. You walk back toward the wagon where the oxen are waiting. The air is getting very cold again, but you don't mind as much. You know that tomorrow you will come back. You will dig a little more, and then you will start to build the front wall. You will use those heavy blocks of sod you cut this morning. You are no longer just a visitor on the plains. You have left your mark. You have started to weave yourself into the story of this place. The first hole is done, and the heart of your home is beating in the silence of the earth. The sun rises again, and the sky is the color of a pale blue robin's egg. Your body feels the work from yesterday. Your back is a little stiff, and your palms are red from the wooden handle of the spade. But when you step out of the wagon, you feel a sense of excitement. Today you are going to learn a secret. It is the secret that makes this whole land possible. It is the secret of the roots. Before you go back to the hole in the hill, you need a different tool. The spade is good for digging deep, but to get the best building blocks, you need something that can slice through the top of the earth like a hot knife through butter. You go to the back of your wagon and pull out your breaking plow. Some people call it a sod buster. It is a heavy tool made of dark, cold iron. The blade, which is called a plowshare, is long and curved. It is kept very, very sharp. You spent an hour last night with your whetstone making sure the edge was ready. You hitch the oxen to the plow. They are big, slow animals, but they have a lot of power in their shoulders. You walk them over to a flat patch of grass near your new dugout. You don't want to dig just anywhere. You want the best grass, the kind with the thickest roots. You look for the big, bluey stem. This is a type of grass that grows very tall, sometimes taller than a man. Its stems have a little bit of a blue-purple color near the bottom. Where this grass grows, the roots are the strongest. You hold the handles of the plow. You give a little whistle to the oxen, and they begin to pull. At first, the plow just skims over the top. Then you lean your weight into it. You push the iron nose into the earth. Crack, crack, snap, pop. It is the strangest sound you have ever heard. It sounds like 100 small dry sticks breaking all at once. It is the sound of the roots being cut. As the oxen pull, the plow turns over a long, straight ribbon of earth. It looks like a giant dark chocolate cake being sliced. The ribbon of dirt does not crumble. It stays together in one long, solid piece. You stop the oxen and bend down to look at this ribbon. You pick up a piece of the earth and turn it over. This is the moment you see the secret. The dirt is not just dirt. It is a thick, fuzzy mat of millions of tiny hairs and thick, woody cords. These are the roots. They are so thick that you can hardly see the brown soil between them. They are wrapped around each other like they are holding hands. A simple historical fact about this grass is that the roots are much bigger than the part you see above the ground. While the grass might be 6 feet high, the roots can go down 15 feet deep into the dark earth. That is about 4 or 5 meters deep. If you stood 3 men on top of each other, the roots would still go deeper than that. They go down that far to find water during the long hot summers when the rain does not fall. You run your fingers over the roots. They feel rough and a bit damp. You try to pull a single root out of the dirt, but you can't. It is locked in place. You realize that this is why the hills don't wash away when the heavy rains come. This is why the wind cannot blow the ground away. The grass is like a giant net that holds the whole world together. It is a living carpet that covers the entire middle of the country. Without these roots, you could not build your house. If the dirt was just loose sand or soft mud, your walls would fall down the first time the wind blew. But these roots act like a natural glue. They turn the dirt into a brick that is stronger than any brick made by a person. You feel a deep respect for this grass. It has been growing here for thousands of years, weaving this net deeper and deeper into the dark. You spend the morning following the oxen. You make several long rows of turned over earth. Each ribbon is about 12 inches wide and 4 inches thick. You call these sod ribbons. They are heavy and wet with the dew of the morning. You work slowly, making sure the lines are straight. The smell of the fresh turned earth is everywhere now. It is a heavy, sweet smell. It smells like life and work. Around noon, the sun is high and the air is still. You stop the oxen to let them rest and eat some of the tall grass. You walk back to the dugout you started yesterday. You jump down into the hole. It is even quieter in here today. You look at the walls you carved with your spade. You can see the ends of the roots poking out from the dirt walls. They look like tiny white and brown threads. You sit down on the floor of your hole and lean your head back against the dirt wall. You close your eyes. You stay very still for a long time. You don't think about the work or the cold or the long road that brought you here. You just feel the earth. You can feel the coolness of the deep ground seeping into your back. You listen to the sound of the wind passing over the top of the hole. Up there, the world is moving and loud. Down here, everything is still. You think about all those roots stretching out in every direction around you. You are sitting in the middle of a giant, sleeping forest of roots. It feels like the earth is hugging you. It is a very safe, very solid feeling. After a few minutes of quiet, you open your eyes. You reach out and touch one of the roots poking out of the wall. It is thin, like a piece of string. You give it a little tug. It doesn't move. It is connected to the whole world outside. You realize that when you finish your house, you won't just be living on the land. You will be part of it. Your walls will be made of the same roots that hold the hills in place. Your roof will be part of the same carpet that the buffalo walk on. You feel a little less like a stranger now. The land is not just an empty space anymore. It is a place with a secret strength, and it has shared that secret with you. It has given you its roots to help you stay warm. You climb out of the hole and go back to your ribbons of sod. Now comes the part that requires a lot of patience. You have to cut these long ribbons into smaller blocks. You use your spade to chop the ribbons into pieces that are about 2 feet long. Each piece is a brick. You pick one up. It is very heavy. It weighs as much as a large stone. You have to use both hands and keep your back straight. You begin to move the bricks over to the dugout. You stack them in neat piles. You want to have all your materials ready before you start to build the front wall. You look at your piles of dirt bricks. They are dark and rich. You think about how people back in the cities build houses with expensive wood or red clay bricks fired in a hot oven. Your bricks were made by the sun, the rain, and the slow passage of time. They didn't cost a single penny, but they are more valuable to you than gold. As the afternoon goes on, your pile grows. You are covered in the dust of the roots. It is on your hands, your face, and your clothes. But you don't mind. You feel like you are becoming the same color as the land. You are becoming a sodbuster for real. You are learning that to live here, you must be as tough and as deep as the big blue stem grass. You must have roots of your own. The sun begins to dip low again. The shadows of the tall grass grow long and thin, like fingers reaching across the ground. You unhitch the oxen and lead them back to the wagon. You give them a little extra grain tonight as a thank you for their hard work. They have helped you break the earth. They have helped you find the secret. Tonight, as you lie in the wagon, you don't just hear the wind. You think about the world beneath the wagon wheels. You think about the millions of miles of roots holding everything steady in the dark. You feel a sense of wonder. The world is much deeper than it looks, and tomorrow you will start to stack those roots high. You will build your walls and you will finally have a place to call your own. The watch continues, and the earth is your partner in the long, quiet night. The sun is a bit higher now, and the dew on the grass has turned into a soft mist that rises slowly from the ground. You stand over the long ribbons of earth that the plough pulled up. They looked like long, dark snakes resting in the yellow grass. Now the real test of your strength begins. You have to turn these long strips into bricks. On the plains, people have a funny name for these blocks of dirt. They call them Nebraska Marble. Of course, they are not made of stone, and they are not smooth or white. But they are just as important to you as the finest marble would be to a king. They are the stones of the prairie, and they are the only thing you have to build with. You take your spade in both hands. You have a small stick that you have cut to exactly 2 feet long. This is your measuring tool. You lay the stick down on the ribbon of sod, and you mark the spot with a little poke of your spade. You want every brick to be the same size. If they are all the same, your walls will be straight and strong. If they are different sizes, your house will lean and wobble, like a person who has had too much cider. You lift the spade high and drive it down into the ribbon. Thwack. The sound is solid. It is a deep, heavy sound that stays close to the ground. Because the earth is so full of roots, the spade does not just slide in. You have to use your weight. You jump a little, putting both feet on the shoulders of the spade, and the metal bites through the grass. You feel the vibration go all the way up your arms and into your teeth. It is a good, honest jar to the system. You move the spade back and forth to loosen the block. Then move to the next mark. One by one, you cut the bricks. Each one is about 12 inches wide and 4 or 5 inches thick. When you try to lift the first one, you realize just how heavy Nebraska marble really is. A single brick can weigh 50 pounds. That is as heavy as a large dog or a big sack of grain. You have to bend your knees and lift with your legs, just like you were taught back home. You pull the brick up, and you can see the bottom of it. It is shaggy with white roots that look like tiny, tangled hairs. You carry the brick over to the edge of your dugout hole. You set it down carefully. You don't want to drop it and break the edges. Even though the roots hold it together, a big fall could make it crack. You go back for another. And another. The work is very slow. It is a steady, repetitive dance. Walk to the ribbon, measure with a stick, jump on the spade, lift the heavy weight, and carry it to the pile. Your shirt is soon damp with sweat, and your hands are getting a dark crust of mud on them. This mud is different from the mud in a garden. It is sticky and thick. It gets under your fingernails and into the creases of your skin. It feels cool and heavy. As you work, you find a microhistory detail in the dirt. You see a small, rusted piece of metal buried in one of the sod bricks. You pick it up and wipe away the dirt. It is a broken tooth from an old deer antler rake. Someone was here a long time ago, perhaps an explorer or a traveller, and they lost a piece of their tool in the tall grass. The earth swallowed it up and kept it safe for years, hidden under the roots. You put the small bit of metal in your pocket. It feels like a little gift from the past, a reminder that you are not the first person to walk on this land, even if it feels very lonely today. By the time you have cut 20 bricks, your arms are starting to feel like they are made of lead. You stop for a moment and look at the field. You have cleared a small patch of the grass, and the dark earth underneath is showing. It looks like a scar on the golden skin of the prairie. You feel a little bit sorry for the grass, but you know that it will grow back. The prairie is very good at healing itself. You decide to sit down for a moment of reflection. You find a spot where the grass is still tall and soft. You sit on the ground and lean back. The world is so quiet. There is no one to talk to, no dogs barking, no wheels turning. There is only the sound of your own heart beating in your ears. Thump, thump, thump. You look at the pile of bricks you have made. They look so small compared to the big hill and the wide sky. You think about how many bricks it will take to make a whole wall. Hundreds, maybe thousands. It seems like an impossible task for one person with one spade. But then you look at your hands. They are dirty and rough, but they are strong. You look at the spade leaning against the pile of marble. It is just a piece of wood and metal, but it is a powerful tool. You realize the big things are just a lot of small things put together. A house is just a lot of bricks. A journey is just a lot of steps. You don't have to build the whole house today. You just have to cut the next brick. The wind picks up a little, and it smells of rain. You look at the clouds in the west. They are large and white, like giant heaps of wool. They are moving slowly across the blue. You watch them for a long time. You don't feel the need to rush. On the plains, time feels different. There is no clock on a wall to tell you when to eat or sleep. You follow the sun. You follow the feeling in your muscles. You follow the wind. You stand up and brush the dry grass off your trousers. You feel a little bit better after the rest. You pick up the spade and the measuring stick. You go back to the ribbon of sod. Thwack. You cut another brick. This one has a yellow flower pressed into the side of it. The flower is dead now, but its shape is still there in the dirt. You place it on the pile with the flower facing out. You think that maybe when you build the wall, that flower will be part of your bedroom. It will be a little bit of decoration from the earth itself. You work until the sun is halfway down the sky. The pile of bricks is now quite large. It reaches up to your waist. You have enough to start the foundation of the front wall. You feel a sense of pride. You have turned the ground into a building material. You have taken the rubbish of the earth, the dirt, and the weeds, and you have turned it into something valuable. You take a spade over to a flat rock and scrape off the heavy mud. You want to keep the metal clean so it doesn't rust in the night air. You look at the edge of the spade. It is a little bit duller than it was this morning. You will have to use your whetstone tonight by the light of the lantern. You walk back to the wagon, pulling your coat back on as the air cools. You look back at your Nebraska marble. In the late afternoon light, the bricks have a soft brown glow. They look solid. They look like they belong there. You are starting to see the shape of your home. It isn't just a hole in the ground anymore. It is a place that has walls, even if those walls are currently just a pile of dirt Tonight you will dream of the rhythm of the spade. You will feel the weight of the bricks in your sleep, but you will also feel the safety of the hill. You are learning to be a builder. You are learning that the earth is heavy, but it is also kind. It gives you everything you need if you are willing to work for it. The watchman is tired, but his heart is full of the simple heavy weight of the marble that will soon be his shelter. The sun is a bit warmer today as it sits in the middle of the sky. You are standing in the center of your workspace. Around you, the piles of earth bricks are waiting. These are the bricks you cut yesterday. They have sat out in the air for a night, and they feel a little more solid now. The edges are a bit dry, but the middle of each brick is still damp and heavy. Today is the day you stop digging and start building. You are going to turn these piles of dirt into walls. You start at the front of your dugout. Since the back and the sides are made by the hill itself, you only need to build one big wall across the front. You begin by clearing a flat space on the ground. You use your spade to scrape away any loose grass or stones. You want the ground to be as level as a floor in a fine house. This is your foundation. In the city, people use stone or concrete for this. Here you use the hard-packed clay of the earth. It is just as strong if you treat it right. You pick up your first brick. You remember the grass side down rule. This is a very important secret that the older settlers told you. You must always place the brick with the grass and the roots facing the ground. When you put the next brick on top of it, the roots will start to tangle together. Over time, the wall will not just be a stack of dirt. It will become one single, solid piece of earth. The roots act like thousands of tiny fingers, holding on to each other and never letting go. You lay the first row of bricks. You place them end to end, making a long line across the front of the hole. You make sure they are pushed tight against each other. There should be no gaps for the wind to whistle through. Once the first row is down, you step back and look at it. It is not very high yet, only about 4 inches. But it is straight. It looks like the beginning of something real. Now, you have to use a clever trick. You don't put the second row of bricks directly on top of the first ones. Instead, you stagger them. You place the middle of a new brick over the spot where 2 bricks meet in the row below. This is exactly how people build walls with red clay bricks or heavy stones. It makes the wall much stronger. If you put all the cracks in a straight line, the wall would fall over like a house of cards. But by staggering them, you lock the whole thing together. As you lift each brick, you feel the weight in your shoulders. Your muscles are getting used to the work, but it is still a big task. Each brick is a heavy gift from the land. You move slowly. There is no reason to hurry. If you build too fast, you might make a mistake, and a mistake in a wall is a dangerous thing. Every few rows, you stop to add some mortar. In a normal house, mortar is a mix of sand and lime that turns into stone. Here your mortar is simple mud. You take some of the loose dirt you dug out of the hill and mix it with a little water from your bucket. You stir it with a stick until it is thick and gooey, like porridge. You use a small wooden tool called a trowel to spread this mud over the top of the bricks. The trowel is a flat piece of metal with a handle. You smooth the mud out, filling in any little holes or cracks. This mud will dry and act like glue, holding your Nebraska marble in place. A simple historical fact about these walls is that they are very thick. Most sod walls are at least 2 feet thick. That is wider than a man's shoulders. Because they are so thick, they are very good at keeping the temperature steady. But they also have another great benefit. They are fireproof. On the plains, the grass often catches fire in the dry autumn. Lee's prairie fires can move as fast as a galloping horse. A wooden cabin would burn down in minutes. But a house made of earth and roots will not burn. It is a safe fortress in a world of fire. By the afternoon, the wall is up to your waist. You are starting to feel like you are standing behind a real shield. You can see the different colors of the bricks. Some are dark brown, some are almost black, and some have a bit of grey clay in them. It looks like a beautiful, natural pattern. You take out a special tool from your pocket. It is a hand axe. This is a small axe with a short handle and a very sharp blade. You use it to trim the wall. As you stack the bricks, some of the roots and long grass bits stick out from the sides. They look like messy whiskers. You take the hand axe and run it down the face of the wall, chopping away the extra bits. Thwack, thwack, thwack. The whiskers fall to the ground, leaving the wall smooth and neat. It starts to look less like a pile of dirt and more like a finished building. You stop for a moment of reflection. The sun is starting to get lower, casting long shadows across the grass. You lean your back against your new wall. It feels cool and very solid. You look out over the top of the wall at the vast open land. From here, the world looks a little less scary. You have built a barrier. You have said to the wind and the empty space, "This is my spot. You cannot come in here." You stay very still. The only sound is the flapping of the canvas on your wagon and the distant call of a crow. The silence of the plains is very deep. It is a heavy silence that makes you feel like you are the only person on the planet. But it is not a lonely feeling anymore. You have the wall to keep you company. You have the work of your hands to show that you are here. You feel a sense of peace that you never felt in the noisy streets of the city. You pick up another brick and continue. The wall gets higher and higher. Soon it is up to your chest. You have to lift the bricks higher now, which is harder on your arms. You feel the grit of the soil on your skin. It is everywhere in your hair, under your collar, and inside your boots. But you don't mind the dirt. You have learned that this dirt is your friend. It is the thing that will keep you alive. You think about how people back home would react if they saw you now. They would see a person covered in mud, building a house out of grass. They might think you are poor or crazy, but you know better. You know that you are rich in a way they don't understand. You have a whole world to yourself. You have a house that is part of the earth. You don't owe anyone any money for this home. You earned it with every lift of a brick and every swing of the spade. As the light begins to fade into a soft golden orange, you finish the last row for the day. The wall is now almost as tall as you are. Tomorrow, you will have to leave a space for the door, but for now, you just enjoy the look of the solid earth. You take your trowel and smooth out the last bit of mud on the top. You walk around to the side and look at where the wall meets the hill. You have tucked the edges of the wall deep into the soil of the slope. It looks like the wall is growing right out of the hill. It is a perfect fit. You pick up your tools and head back to the wagon. You are tired, but it is a good kind of tired. It is the tiredness of a person who has changed the world just a little bit. You have turned a slope into a shelter. You have turned the rubbish of the grass into a wall of honor. Tonight the wind might blow, but it will hit your wall and have to go around. You're starting to win the battle with the plains. You are building your fortress of reliability. One brick at a time, you are making a place where you can finally rest. The Watchman is done for the day, but the walls are standing tall in the starlight, waiting for the roof that will soon come. The sun is climbing higher into the sky, and the morning air is starting to lose its chill. You are standing in front of your new wall of earth. It looks strong and thick. But there is a problem. You have built a solid wall, and now you realize you need a way to get inside. A house without a door is just a box of dirt. Today, you are going to plan for the gaps. You're going to decide where the light will come in and where you will walk through to find safety. You walk over to your wagon. At the very bottom, hidden under the sacks of grain and the spare blankets, are a few precious pieces of wood. On the plains, wood is more valuable than silver. You brought these boards all the way from the east. They are made of pine, and they have a sweet, sharp smell that reminds you of the big forests you left behind. You run your hand over the grain of the wood. It feels smooth and cool. This wood will be the skeleton of your door and window. Without a wooden frame, the heavy earth bricks would just tumble down into the opening. You pick up a saw. It is a long piece of metal with sharp teeth. You place a board across two small rocks and begin to cut. Zit-zat, zit-zat. The sound is loud in the quiet air. It is a different sound than the thwack of the spade. It is a high, singing sound. You see the white sawdust falling onto the yellow grass like tiny flakes of snow. You are making a door frame. This is just a simple rectangle of wood that is about 6 feet tall and 3 feet wide. Once the frame is ready, you carry it over to the center of your front wall. You have left a big gap in the middle of your sod bricks. You push the wooden frame into the gap. You have to be very careful here. You take out your plumb line, again that piece of string with the lead weight. You hold it against the wood to make sure the frame is standing perfectly straight. If the door is crooked, it will never stay shut, or it might swing open in the middle of a storm. Now you have to learn a very important historical fact about building with earth. A sod house is very heavy. Over the first year, the weight of the walls will push down on the ground. The house will actually sink or settle about 4 or 5 inches. If you put the wood frame tight against the top bricks, the sinking wall would crush the wood and snap it like a twig. So you leave a gap. You leave about half a foot of empty space between the top of your wooden frame and the bricks above it. You fill this gap with loose grass or old rags. As the house sinks, the rags will squash down and the wood will stay safe. It is a clever way to let the house move without breaking. You begin to stack the sod bricks around the wooden frame. You use your mud mortar to seal the wood to the dirt. You want it to be airtight. That means you don't want even a tiny bit of wind to sneak through the cracks. You use your fingers to poke the sticky mud into every little hole. The mud feels cool and slimy between your fingers. It is a messy job, but it is important. You are making sure your home stays warm. Next, you think about the window. You only have enough wood for one small window. You decide to put it on the south side, right next to the door. You don't want a big window because the more holes you have in the wall, the more the cold can get in. You make a small wooden square about the size of a dinner plate. You leave a gap for it in the wall, just like you did for the door. You stop for a moment of reflection. You stand in the spot where your door will be. You look out across the plains. From this inside position, the world looks different. The doorway acts like a picture frame. It takes the big, scary, empty world and turns it into a small, beautiful view. You see the golden grass moving in the breeze. You see the white clouds floating by. You realize that soon you will be able to close this door. You will be able to shut out the whole world and be in your own private place. The silence is very deep right now. You can hear a tiny cricket chirping somewhere in the roots of your wall. It is already moved in. You feel a sense of calm. You are not just building a shelter anymore. You are building a home. You are creating a space where you can think and dream and rest. You feel very small, but you also feel very powerful. You are the one who decided where the light would enter this hill. You reach into your pocket and pull out a latch string. This is a micro-history detail that every pioneer knows. It is a long, thin strip of dried deer leather. You will use this to open your door. You will drill a tiny hole in the wooden door and pull the string through. If the string is hanging outside, it means anyone can pull it and come in. It is a sign of being a good neighbor. If you want to be alone or if you are sleeping, you pull the string inside. Then, no one can open the door from the outside. People often say, the latch string is always out, which means you are always welcome. You rub the leather string between your fingers. It is tough and a bit oily. You think about the day when you will finally hang the door on its hinges. It will be a grand day, but for now, you just have the frame and the gap. As the sun begins to move toward the west, you finish stacking the bricks all the way to the top of the door frame. You have used your hand axe to trim the edges so they are neat. The front of your house now has a face. It has a mouth for the door and one small eye for the window. It looks like it is watching the horizon. You take a step back and look at your work. The wooden frames look very bright against the dark brown of the earth. They look like bits of bone in the body of the hill. You feel a great sense of pride. You have solved the problem of how to get in. You have made a plan for the light. You go back to the wagon and pick up a bucket of water. You splash some on your face and hands to wash away the mud. The water is cold and refreshing. You look at the sky. It is turning a soft pink and gold. The night shift of the prairie is about to begin. The owls will come out soon, and the wind will start its nightly song. Tonight, you will sit by your wagon and look at your doorway. You will imagine the warmth of a fire inside. You will imagine the smell of soup cooking on the stove. You are almost there. The walls are high, and the door is ready. Tomorrow, you will have to face the hardest part of all, the roof. You will have to find a way to cover your head without any big trees to help you. But as you look at your straight, strong door frame, you know you can do it. You have already turned the earth into a wall. You can turn the sky into a ceiling. The watchman is tired, but the plan is working. The gaps are in place, and the light is waiting to come home. You climb into your wagon and feel the peace of a job well done. The plains are quiet, and your house of earth is standing strong in the twilight. The sun is low, and the shadows are very long when you wake up. Today is a day for a different kind of hunt. You have built your walls, but a house without a roof is just a hole in the ground. To keep the rain and the snow off your head, you need something to hold up the heavy earth. You need wood. But as you look out over the rolling waves of grass, the land is as bare as the palm of your hand. There are no forests here. There are no tall pines or sturdy oaks. You hitch the oxen to the wagon. You are going to go on a journey to find the skeleton for your roof. On the Great Plains, wood is often hidden. You have to look where the water is. You drive the oxen slowly toward the west, looking for the dip in the land that means a river or a small creek. After many miles of slow travel, you see a thin line of green in the distance. It is a different color than the yellow grass. It is the deep, dusty green of cottonwood trees and willows. You reach the creek. The water is shallow and moves slowly over the brown sand. Along the banks there are a few trees. They are not like the straight, tall trees of the east. These cottonwoods are twisted and gnarled. Their bark is thick and rough, like the skin of an old elephant. The wind has bent them, and the sun has baked them. But to you, they are more beautiful than a palace. You jump down from the wagon and pick up your cross-cut saw. This is a long saw with a handle at each end, though today you will have to work it alone. It has big, sharp teeth designed to bite into thick wood. You find a tree that has already fallen. Perhaps a summer storm knocked it over, or it simply got too old to stand. You do not want to cut down a living tree if you can help it. The wood from a dead tree is already seasoned, which means it is dry and won't shrink or warp as much when you put it on your house. Shush hush, shush hush. The saw sings as you cut the trunk into long poles. These will be your rafters. A rafter is a long beam that goes from the top of one wall to the top of the other to hold up the roof. You need poles that are at least 12 feet long. As you work, the smell of the wood fills the air. It is a sweet, sappy smell. It reminds you of being a child. A simple historical fact about these settlers is that they would sometimes travel 20 or 30 miles just to find enough wood for a single roof. Wood was so rare that people would guard their wood piles with their lives. If you found a good log, it was like finding a bar of gold. You would never burn a good piece of wood for a fire. You saved every bit of it for building. You find a special piece of wood, a forked branch. This is a thick branch that looks like the letter Y. This is a microhistory detail that makes a dugout much stronger. You will use this forked branch as a ridge post. You will stand it up in the middle of your house to hold up the main beam of the roof. It is a very old way of building, using the natural shape of the tree to do the hard work. You rub your hand over the smooth grey wood of the fork. It feels solid and reliable. By the afternoon, your wagon is full of crooked poles and bundles of thin willow branches. The willow branches are flexible, like whipcord. You will use these to fill in the gaps between the big poles. You feel like a rich man as you drive the oxen back toward your hill. The wagon is heavy, and the wheels groan under the weight of the timber. You stop for a moment of reflection. The sun is setting and the creek is far behind you. You are back in the middle of the empty grass. You look at the wood in your wagon. It looks so small and fragile against the giant sky. You think about how much effort it took just to get these few sticks. It makes you realize how much we take for granted. Back in the city, you could buy wood at a yard. Here, every piece of wood tells a story of a long walk and a sharp saw. You feel a deep thankfulness for these twisted trees. They grew in the middle of nowhere, fighting the wind, just so they could one day be the roof over your head. The world is very still. The oxen have stopped for a moment to breathe. You can hear the sound of the wind moving through the wood in the wagon. It makes a hollow whistling sound. It is a lonely sound, but also a peaceful one. You are the only person for miles who has a wagon full of trees. You are the only one who is planning to sleep under a wooden ceiling tonight. You reach your dugout just as the first stars appear. The earth walls look dark and strong in the twilight. They are waiting for their crown. You unhitch the oxen and give them a pat on their dusty necks. They did a good job today. You take one of the long poles and lean it against the wall. It fits. You feel a great sense of relief. You have the materials you need. You won't have to sleep with the stars as your only blanket for much longer. You will have a roof. It won't be made of shingles or slate, that it will be made of the earth and the trees you found yourself. Tonight, you sit on the tongue of the wagon and look at your pile of wood. You use your knife to peel a little bit of the bark off one of the willow branches. The wood underneath is white and clean. You think about the skeleton you will build tomorrow. You will weave the branches together like a giant basket. Then, you will put the earth back on top. You are going to put the prairie over your head. The watchman is tired from the long drive, but his mind is busy with the geometry of the roof. You think about the angles and the weight. You think about the rain and how to keep it out. But mostly, you think about the feeling of being inside, with a solid ceiling between you and the infinite sky. The night is cold, but the wood in your wagon is a promise of warmth to come. The morning is very quiet. There is no wind today, which is a rare gift on the plains. The air is still and clear, and you can see for miles in every direction. Today is the day you build the living roof. This is perhaps the most important part of your house. It is the lid that will keep you dry and warm. You look at the poles you brought back from the creek yesterday. They look like thin, bony fingers. Now, you must turn them into a solid ceiling. You start by setting your main beam. This is the biggest, strongest log you found. You lift it with all your might and set it across the top of your front wall and the back of the dugout. It is a ridgepole. It runs right down the middle of your home. To make it extra strong, you use that Y-shaped branch you found. You stand it up in the center of the room and let the ridgepole rest in the fork of the branch. This is your ridge post. It acts like a sturdy leg, holding the weight of the whole roof so the walls don't have to do all the work. Once the main beam is in place, you lay the smaller poles. These are your rafters. You place them side by side, going from the ridge pole down to the side walls. You space them out about a foot apart. It looks like the ribs of a giant animal, but the gaps are still too big. If you put dirt on top now, it would just fall through onto your floor. You pick up the bundles of willow branches. These are thin and bendy. You weave them across the rafters, going over one and under the next. This is called brush layering. It is very much like weaving a giant basket over your head. You work carefully, making sure the willow is tight and thick. You can feel the rough bark on your fingers. It is a slow job, but it is very peaceful. The smell of the willow is fresh and green. A simple historical fact about these roofs is that they are very heavy. A typical sod roof can weigh several tons. That is the weight of 2 or 3 large wagons full of grain. Because the roof is so heavy, the walls have to be thick to hold it up. But the weight is also a good thing. It pushes down on the sod bricks and makes the whole house feel solid. It keeps the wind from getting a grip on the house and blowing it away. Once the willow brush is thick enough, you add a layer of prairie hay. This is just the long dry grass you cut from the field. You spread a thick carpet of it over the willow. This hay acts like a filter. It will stop the dirt from sifting down into your soup when you are cooking. Now comes the final part, the sod. You go back to your piles of Nebraska marble. These are the bricks with the roots still in them. You carry them up the side of the hill and onto the roof. You have to be very careful where you step. You don't want to fall through your own ceiling. You lay the sod in 2 layers. The first layer goes with the grass side up. The second layer goes with the grass side down. This is a clever trick. The roots from the 2 layers will grow into each other, weaving the whole roof into one single fireproof carpet. As you lay the last few bricks, you find a micro-history detail. Stuck in the roots of one sod brick is a small white shell. It is the shell of a land snail. It is perfectly shaped, like a tiny spiral. It reminds you that this earth was once at the bottom of a great sea, millions of years ago. You leave the shell in the roof. It will be a tiny guardian for your home. You stop for a moment of reflection. You are standing on top of your house. Your feet are on the roof, but your head is in the sky. You look around at the world. From up here, your house is almost invisible. It looks like just another part of the hill. If a traveler were walking by, they might not even see you. You are part of the land now. You have burrowed into the earth like a badger or a fox. The silence is very beautiful. Without the wind, the plains feel like they are holding their breath. You can hear the sound of a distant hawk's wings as it flaps through the air. You feel a deep sense of pride. You have built a roof out of sticks and grass and dirt. It doesn't look like much from the outside, but you know how strong it is. You know that it will hold back the rain. You know that it will keep the stars out at night, so you can sleep in the dark. You climb down from the roof. Your knees are a bit shaky from the height and the work. You walk into your dugout for the first time with the roof on. It is very dark inside. The only light comes from the open doorway. It is also very quiet. The thick walls and heavy roof soak up all the sounds of the world. It feels like being in a cave or a very old church. You reach up and touch the willow brush. It feels solid. You can feel the weight of the earth above you. It doesn't feel scary. It feels like a heavy blanket. You know that no matter how hard it rains, you will be dry. You know that when the fiery tornadoes of the prairie come, the big grass fires, your roof will not burn. It is a living, growing shield. Over time, the grass on your roof will continue to grow. In the spring, it will turn green. Flowers might even bloom over your head. Your house will breathe with the seasons. It will be a home that is alive. You walk back outside. The sun is starting to set, and the sky is a deep, glowing red. You look at your finished Soddy. It is a humble building. It is made of the most basic things in the world. But to you, it is a palace. It is a fortress. It is the place where you will finally find rest. You pick up your spade and your saw and put them away. The night shift is coming, but for the first time, you have a real place to hide. The watchman has built his tower, and the earth has given him a roof. The morning air is damp and heavy today. You step out of your dugout and look up at the sky. The bright blue from yesterday is gone. Instead, the sky is a flat dark grey, like the colour of a slate rock. You can smell the rain coming. It is a sharp, fresh smell that makes the back of your throat tickle. You look at your roof. It is still mostly brown and dusty. The sod bricks you laid are sitting there, waiting for their first big test. You feel a little bit of worry in your chest. Will it hold? Will the water find a way through the earth and the willow brush? You spend the morning doing a few last-minute chores. You take a long, flat piece of wood and use it to tamp the roof. This just means you hit the sod bricks firmly to pack them down. Thump, thump, thump. You want the dirt to be as tight as a drum. If there are any big air pockets, the water will find them and turn them into little rivers. You move across the roof with care. You are wearing your brogans. These are heavy, ankle-high work boots made of thick leather. They have iron nails in the soles to help them last longer. The leather is dark with grease and dirt, but they keep your feet safe from the sharp bits of grass and stone. Then the first drop hits. It makes a soft plip sound on the brim of your hat. Then another hits the dry dirt of the roof. It leaves a dark, round spot. Within minutes, the rain is falling in a steady rhythm. You scramble down from the roof and duck inside your home. You stand just inside the doorway and watch the world turn grey. A simple historical fact about these earthen roofs is that they were famous for a very strange problem. People used to say that if it rained for 2 days outside, it would rain for 3 days inside. This is because the thick layers of dirt would soak up the water like a giant sponge. Even after the sun came out and the clouds went away, the water would still be slowly dripping through the ceiling. To stay dry, people would sometimes have to pin an old rag cover or a piece of oilcloth to the ceiling over their bed. It was a trade-off. The roof kept the wind and fire out, but it was not always perfect against a long, soaking rain. You sit down on a small wooden crate and listen. The sound of rain on a sod roof is not like the sound of rain on a tin roof or a wooden one. On tin, it is a loud clatter. On wood, it is a steady drumming. But on a roof made of earth and grass, the sound is very soft. It is a low, muffled hiss. It sounds like 1,000 tiny feet running across a carpet. It is a very peaceful sound. It makes the inside of the dugout feel even more like a secret cave. You feel very tucked away from the rest of the world. You look up at the ceiling. You can see the willow branches and the dry prairie hay. You notice a micro-history detail. One of the willow branches has a tiny green bud on it. Even though it has been cut from the tree, the branch thinks it's still alive because of the moisture in the dirt and the fresh rain. It is trying to grow. This is why people called it a living roof. It wasn't just a lid. It was a piece of the prairie that you had lifted up. As the hours go by, the rain keeps falling. You watch the edge of the roof above the door. A small trickle of water starts to run down the front wall. You take a bit of clay and push it into the crack to stop the leak. You have to be a bit of a doctor for your house, always fixing the little hurts and gaps. But for the most part, the roof is doing its job. The inside of your home stays mostly dry. The smell of wet earth fills the room. It is a deep, rich smell. It doesn't smell like mud. It smells like a garden after a storm. You spend a moment in silence. The light inside is very dim. You can just see the shapes of your tools leaning against the wall. You sit very still and let your mind wander. You think about the grass outside. You know that as the rain soaks into your roof, the roots in the sod bricks are waking up. They are drinking the water. They are starting to reach out and touch the roots of the bricks next to them. They are weaving themselves together into a solid mat. In a few weeks, the brown dirt on top of your house will start to turn green. Tiny blades of grass will poke through. Perhaps some wild sunflowers will grow over your head. You realize that the roof is not just stopping the rain. It is using the rain to become stronger. The more it grows, the tighter the roots will become. The tighter the roots, the better the roof will be at keeping you safe. It is a beautiful circle. The land is taking care of you because you have given it a place to grow. You feel a sense of calm. You are no longer afraid of the grey sky. You know that you and the hill are partners now. You provide the skeleton of wood, and the earth provides the skin of grass. Together, you are making a place that can stand up to anything the plains can throw at you. You listen to the soft hiss of the rain and feel a deep sense of gratitude. You have a roof. You have a home. You have a place where you can watch the world change while you stay safe and dry in the heart of the hill. The rain starts to let up. The heavy hiss turns into a soft patter. You see a sliver of light at the bottom of the door. The sun is trying to come back out. You step outside and look at the roof. It looks darker now, and the water is dripping slowly from the edges. You reach up and touch the side of a sod brick. It feels solid and cool. You can almost feel the life moving inside it. You know that tomorrow the sun will bake the roof dry again, and the roots will be even stronger than they were this morning. You have survived the first rain, and your house of earth is still standing proud. The watchman is content, for the living roof has proven its worth. The sun is coming off the fields, Weber, finding every gap in your clothes. You can hear inside your dugout and look at the walls. They are strong, but they are still just raw dirt. You can see the roots poking out, and sometimes a little bit of dust falls onto the floor when the wind shakes the roof. Today, you're going to make the inside of your home feel less like a cave and more like a real room. You are going to smooth the walls with clay. You walk down to the creek again, where the water has washed away the top layers of soil. Here, you find a bed of thick grey clay. It feels like heavy dough in your hands. You fill 2 large wooden buckets with the clay and carry them back to the hill. This clay is going to be your plaster. In big cities, people use expensive white plaster made from crushed lime. You are going to use what the earth is giving you for free. You sit on the floor of your dugout with a bucket between your knees. You add a little bit of water and a handful of chopped dry grass. The grass acts like tiny pieces of rebar, the strong metal rods used in big buildings to keep the clay from cracking as it dries. You roll up your sleeves and start to mix it with your bare hands. The clay is cold and smooth. It squishes between your fingers. It is a very satisfying feeling, like playing in the mud when you were a child. Once the mix is just right, you stand up and face the wall. You take a big handful of the wet clay and slap it against the dirt bricks. Splat. You use the palm of your hand to spread it out. You move your hand in wide, circular motions, pushing the clay into all the little gaps and holes between the sod bricks. You are leveling the wall. You are making the bumpy surface flat and even. A simple historical fact about these walls is that they were very thick, which made them great at holding heat. But the dirt could be messy. By putting a layer of clay plaster on the inside, you create a seal. This keeps the dust from falling into your bed and stops little bugs from making homes in the cracks of the sod. Some people would even mix a little bit of wood ash or lime into the clay to make it look whiter. It helped reflect the light and made the small room feel much bigger and brighter. You work your way around the room. It is slow, heavy work. Your arms get tired from reaching high and low, but you enjoy seeing the wall change. The dark, shaggy dirt disappears under a smooth grey coat. You feel the texture of the clay. It is gritty from the sand and soft from the water. You find a microhistory detail as you work. You use a slicker to finish the job. A slicker is a flat piece of wood or a smooth stone that you rub over the wet clay to make it perfectly flat. You found a very smooth, oval stone by the river that fits perfectly in the palm of your hand. As you rub the stone over the clay, the wall begins to shine a little bit. You stop for a moment of reflection. The room is very quiet. The only sound is the soft shh, yes sound, is the watch shoo of your smooth stone moving against the wet clay. You look at the wall you have finished. It doesn't look like dirt anymore. It looks solid and clean. You feel a sense of peace. You are not just living in a hole, you are living in a space you have crafted with your own hands. You think about how many times you have touched this earth, first with the plough, then with the spade, and now with your bare skin. You and the land are becoming very well acquainted. You take a deep breath. The smell of the wet clay is strong. It is a clean, mineral smell. It reminds you that your house is made of the very bones of the world. You feel safe here. The thick walls stand between you and the giant, empty prairie. They are like a big, silent hug. You realize that you don't need fancy wallpaper or expensive paint to make a place beautiful. The simple, honest grey off the clay is enough. By the time the sun starts to go down, you have finished 2 of the walls. You look at your hands. They are coated in a thick layer of grey mud that has started to dry and crack. You laugh a little bit to yourself. You look like you are made of clay too. You walk outside and wash your hands in a basin of water. The water turns cloudy and grey as the earth washes away. You look at your dugout from the outside. It is sinking into the shadows of the hill. But inside, you know the walls are becoming smooth and bright. Tomorrow, You will finish the other walls and maybe start on the floor. You are turning the night shift into a time of comfort. You are building a sanctuary in the middle of the grass. The watchman is tired, but his walls are getting smoother every day and his heart is light. The morning light is trying to find its way into your home, but it is struggling. The thick walls and the heavy roof keep the inside of your dugout very dark. You have finished the smooth clay walls and they look lovely, but you cannot see the work of your hands without leaving the door wide open. And on the plains, leaving the door open means letting in the wind and the dust. Today, you are going to solve the problem of the dark. You are going to make a window. In the city, windows are made of glass. Glass is clear and beautiful, but it is also very heavy and very easy to break. Bringing a large sheet of glass across the bumpy prairie in a wagon is almost impossible. One big rock in the road would turn your window into 1,000 tiny, sharp pieces of rubbish. Instead, you are going to use a clever trick from the old days. You are going to make an oiled paper window. You go to your wooden chest and pull out a few large sheets of thick white paper. You also bring out a small tin of linseed oil. This oil comes from the seeds of the flax plant. It has a strong, nutty smell that fills the small room. You take a clean rag and dip it into the yellow oil. Carefully, you rub the oil over the paper. As the oil soaks into the fibers, something wonderful happens. The paper stops being white and solid. It becomes translucent. That means it lets the light pass through, even if you cannot see clearly through it like a mirror. A simple historical fact about these paper windows is that they were much warmer than glass. Because the paper was thick and coated in oil, it did not let the heat escape as fast as a thin sheet of glass would. However, they had a funny problem. Because the paper was soaked in oil, it smelled like food to the little creatures of the prairie. Sometimes, a hungry mouse or a grasshopper would try to eat a hole right through your window. You have to keep a close watch to make sure your light doesn't turn into a snack for a bug. You take your paper sheets and move to the small wooden frame you built into the wall. You use small iron tacks, tiny nails with flat heads to pin the paper tight against the wood. You pull the paper as tight as you can so it doesn't flap when the wind blows. You use a microhistory tool called a clinch hammer. This is a small, light hammer used for delicate work. You tap the tacks in gently. Tink, tink, tink. The sound is like a little bell ringing in the quiet room. Once the paper is in place, you step back. The change is amazing. The small square in the wall is no longer a dark hole. It is glowing with a soft golden light. It looks like a piece of the sun has been trapped in your wall. The light is not bright like a lamp, but it is gentle. It makes the grey clay walls look warm and cozy. You can see the texture of the clay and the grain of the wooden door. You stop for a moment of reflection. You sit on your bed and watch the window. You cannot see the grass or the sky through the paper, but you can see the shadows of things moving outside. You see the shadow of a tall grass stem waving in the wind. You see the dark shape of a bird fly past. It is like watching a silent play. You feel very peaceful. You are inside your fortress, but you are no longer cut off from the light. You have found a way to let the world in, without letting the cold in with it. The silence is deep and comfortable. You realize that you don't need to see everything outside to feel connected to it. The soft glow of the window is enough to remind you that the sun is still there. It makes the dugout feel like a real house, a place where a person can read a book or write a letter. You feel a sense of accomplishment. You have mastered the light. As the sun moves across the sky, the color of the window changes. In the morning, it is a pale yellow. In the afternoon, it turns a deep, rich orange. You realize that your window is like a clock. You can tell what time it is just by looking at the color of the paper. You feel a deep sense of safety. The night shift is coming soon, but you have your little glow to keep you company. You walk over and touch the paper. It feels cool and a bit slippery from the oil. It is strong, like thin leather. You know it will hold back the wind and the rain. You pick up your hammer and your oil tin and put them away. You have given your home an eye. You have turned a dark cave into a bright sanctuary. The watchman is no longer in the dark, and his heart is as bright as the golden paper in his wall. The air outside is turning crisp, and the sun is hanging lower in the sky. You can feel the change in the seasons. Autumn is coming to the Great Plains, and with it comes a new worry. Your home is built, and your walls are smooth, but the cold is a clever enemy. It will find its way through the thickest earth if you do not have a fire. To have a fire, you need fuel. But as you have learned, there are no trees here to provide logs. You have to look to the land again for a different kind of warmth. You take a large burlap sack from the wagon and step out into the tall grass. Today, you are going on a hunt for kizak. That is the word some people use for dried buffalo or cow dung. Most folks just call them chips. It sounds funny to someone from the city, but on the plains, these dried chips are more precious than oak wood. They are the black gold of the prairie. Without them, you would have no way to cook your food or keep your toes warm when the snow starts to fly. You walk slowly through the grass, keeping your eyes on the ground. You are looking for round, grey shapes. When the sun and wind have been at them for a few weeks, the chips become hard and dry. They don't smell like rubbish at all. They smell like dry grass and old earth. You reach down and pick one up. It is light, almost like a piece of cork. You toss it into your sack. Thump. You move on to the next one. A simple historical fact about the night shift on the plains is that gathering fuel was a job for everyone. Children would often spend their whole day walking miles with a wagon or a sack, picking up every chip they could find. A family needed hundreds, even thousands of these chips to get through a long winter. It was a never-ending task. You had to gather them while the weather was dry, because once they got wet from rain or snow, they were very hard to light. You find a spot where a large herd of buffalo must have passed through many months ago. The ground is covered in fuel. You work quickly now, filling your sack until it is heavy and bulging. You feel the rough texture of the burlap against your legs. You find a micro-history detail in the grass, a chip fork. It is a simple tool you made from a branched stick, used to flick the chips over to see if they dry on the bottom without having to bend down every time. It saves your back from a lot of aching. You stop for a moment of reflection. You sit down on a large rock and look at your full sack. The sun is a deep red, casting a glow over the endless waves of grass. You look at the vastness of the land. It feels so big, and you feel so small. But then you look at the chips in your bag. Each one is a little bit of stored up sunshine and grass. The buffalo ate the grass, the sun dried the waste, and now it is here to keep you alive. It is a perfect cycle. You realize that the land provides everything you need, even if it doesn't look the way you expected. The silence is very heavy. You can hear the dry grass stalks clicking together in the breeze. It sounds like a secret language. You feel a deep sense of calm. You are not a stranger here anymore. You know where the fuel is. You know how the land works. You are part of the night shift now, preparing for the darkness and the cold. You feel safe because you are prepared. You hoist the heavy sack onto your shoulder. It is a good weight, the weight of survival. You walk back toward your dugout, your boots making a steady rhythm on the earth. As you get closer, you see the small mound of your home blending into the hill. It looks like a natural part of the world. You carry the chips inside and stack them neatly in a corner near your small iron stove. They look like a pile of grey stones. You take one chip and break it in half. The inside is full of tightly packed bits of grass. You know that when you light this, it will burn with a steady blue flame. It doesn't flare up like wood. It glows like coal. It gives off a sweet, smoky smell that is the true scent of a pioneer home. You feel a sense of pride. You have gathered your own warmth. You have turned the waste of the prairie into the heart of your home. The sun disappears below the horizon, and the first stars come out. You close your wooden door and pull the latch string inside. The room is dark, but you feel rich. You have a pile of fuel, a thick roof, and smooth walls. You are ready for the night. The watchman is no longer worried about the cold, for he has the bounty of the plains at his feet. The night air outside is sharp and thin, but inside the dugout, the temperature is holding steady. You have closed the door, and the oil paper window is a dark, silent square. Now it is time to bring the room to life. You are going to use the fuel you gathered from the fields to make your first real meal in your new home. You are going to cook over the slow fire of the plains. You move to the corner where your small black iron stove sits. It is a box stove, a heavy piece of metal with 4 short legs and a flat top. It looks like a sturdy little animal waiting to be fed. You take a few small pieces of dry grass and twist them into a tight knot. This is your tinder, the quick-burning material that starts the fire. You strike a match and watch the tiny flame eat into the grass. Then you reach for your pile of kizak, the dried buffalo chips. You place 2 or 3 of the grey flat discs onto the burning grass. At first, there is just a little bit of grey smoke. But then, the chips catch. They don't jump into high, dancing flames like pine wood. Instead, they begin to glow a deep, steady red. The heat starts to come off the iron in waves. You can feel it on your hands and face. It is a different kind of warmth, heavy and reliable. A simple historical fact about cooking with this fuel is that it required a lot of patience. Buffalo chips burn very slowly and do not get as hot as a roaring log fire. Because of this, pioneers became experts at making one-pot meals. You couldn't fry things quickly or bake bread in a hurry. Most of your food was simmered for hours in a heavy pot. This slow cooking was actually good for the tough dried meats and hard beans that made up most of your diet. It turned hard things soft and brought out all the hidden flavors. You pick up your Dutch oven. This is a large, heavy pot made of cast iron. It has 3 small legs on the bottom and a thick lid with a rim around the edge. You put a bit of water from your bucket into the pot and add some dried beef and a handful of shriveled peas. You set the pot directly on top of the glowing chips. You find a microhistory detail in your supply box, a flesh fork. This is a long, 2-pronged fork made of wrought iron, used to hook the meat and turn it in the pot without burning your fingers. The metal is cool at the handle, but gets hot quickly near the fire. As the water begins to bubble, a wonderful smell fills the dugout. It is the smell of salt, meat, and the sweet, earthy scent of the burning chips. It smells like safety. It smells like a home that is finally lived in. You sit on a low stool and watch the steam rise from the pot. The steam hits the cool air of the room and turns into a white mist. You stop for a moment of reflection. The room is silent except for the soft bubble glop of the stew and the faint crackle of the fire. The light from the stove door flickers against your smooth clay walls, making the shadows dance. You look at the heavy iron pot. You think about how far that pot has traveled. It came across mountains and rivers in the back of a wagon, just to sit here in a hole in a hill. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are no longer just surviving, you are living. You have a fire, you have food, and you have a roof that is holding back the vast, dark night. The silence feels like a heavy velvet blanket. You realize that out there, in the wind and the grass, the world is wild and cold. But in here, in this small square of earth, you have created a world that is warm and kind. You feel a connection to every person who has ever sat by a fire to keep the dark away. You are part of an old, old story. You use your flesh fork to poke the meat. It is getting soft. You take a small wooden spoon and taste the broth. It is hot and salty, and it warms you all the way down to your toes. You don't need a fancy table or fine china. You eat straight from the pot, sitting in the golden glow of the stove. Every bite feels like a victory over the wilderness. When you are finished, you don't throw the extra chips away. You move the ashes around to cover the glowing centers of the fuel. This is called banking the fire. It keeps the heat alive in the red coals for hours, so that in the morning, you only have to add a little grass to bring the fire back to life. You wipe your spoon clean and set it aside. The night shift is halfway through and you are full and warm. You look at your home one last time before you blow out your small lamp. The stove is still radiating a gentle heat, and the smell of the stew lingers in the air. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction. You have turned the rubbish of the field into a feast. You have tamed the cold with the bones of the prairie. The watchman is no longer hungry, and his home is a place of light in the middle of the great dark grass. The night has grown very deep, and the world outside has changed. While you were eating your warm stew, the wind began to rise. It started as a soft whistle in the grass, but now it has grown into a powerful roar. You are sitting in the dark, and you can hear the great wind of the plains. It is not like the wind in a forest, which rustles the leaves and snaps the twigs. Here, with nothing to stop it, the wind sounds like a giant freight train rushing past your door. It is a long, heavy sound that vibrates through the very ground you are sitting on. You feel a tiny shiver, but not from the cold. You are safe. You are tucked deep into the side of the hill, and your walls are 2 feet thick. The wind hits the front of your house and has to go around. It cannot find a way inside. You listen to it pushing against the heavy wooden door. The door groans a little on its hinges, but the latch string is pulled tight inside. You feel like a captain in a strong ship, riding out a storm on a dark grassy sea. A simple historical fact about the wind on the plains is that it almost never stops. Because the land is so flat, there is nothing to break the air's path. This constant wind could make people feel very lonely and sometimes even a little bit wind crazy. The sound was always there, day and night, year after year. That is why the dugout was such a blessing. It was the only place where a person could truly find a moment of quiet. Inside the earth, the roar of the world turns into a soft, distant hum. You reach out and touch the wall. It is solid. It does not shake or rattle. You find a microhistory detail in your hand, a door bolt. This isn't a fancy metal lock from a shop. It is a thick piece of oak wood that slides into two heavy wooden loops on the door frame. You carved it yourself with your pocket knife. When you slide the bolt into place, you can feel the click of the wood. It is a simple piece of engineering, but it is the thing that stands between you and the wild night. You rub your fingers over the smooth, worn wood of the bolt. It feels like a promise of safety. You stop for a moment of reflection. You close your eyes and just listen to the wind. You imagine it sweeping over the roof of your house, carrying dust and dry seeds from miles away. You think about the grass outside, bending low under the force of the air. You feel a deep sense of humility. The wind is so much bigger than you are. It has been blowing across these plains for millions of years. But you have found a way to live with it. You haven't tried to fight it with a tall, thin building. You have bowed down to the earth, and the earth is protecting you. The silence inside the dugout is very precious. It is a thick, heavy silence that feels like it has weight. You can hear the steady thump-thump of your own heart. You realize that you are the only warm, still thing for a long, long way. You feel a sense of peace that you never knew in the city. There, the noise was made by people and machines. Here, the noise is made by the world itself, and the quiet is something you have earned with your own hands. You think about the night shift workers of the past, the watchmen, and the guardians who stood in the dark. You are the watchman of this little hill now. Your job is to stay warm and wait for the morning. You feel a connection to the animals that are also hiding from the wind, the prairie dogs in their burrows, the owls in their nests, and the foxes in their dens. You are all doing the same thing. You are all waiting for the wind to get tired. You move over to your bed, which is a simple wooden frame with a mattress made of dry corn husks. When you sit down, the husks make a soft rustling sound like the grass outside. You pull the heavy wool blankets up to your chin. The wind roars again, louder this time, shaking the oiled paper in your window. But the light of the banking fire in the stove is still there, a tiny red eye in the dark. You are not afraid. You realize that the wind is part of the music of this place. It is the voice of the plains. You are learning to hear it without being scared. You are learning that the earth is a strong shield. You feel a deep gratitude for the Nebraska Marble and the heavy roof. They are doing their job. They are keeping the giant wind out so that one small person can sleep in peace. The watchman closes his eyes. The roar of the wind becomes a lullaby. The earth holds you tight and the hill keeps you safe. You drift off to sleep, knowing that when you wake up, the wind will still be there, but so will your walls. You have survived another night on the night shift of the frontier. You are home. The wind is still humming outside, but inside your earthen room, you are not alone. As you lie in the dark, you hear a tiny sound. It is not the wind, and it is not the stove. It is a small scratch coming from the wall near your head. You realize that your house is made of the earth, and the earth is full of living things. Even though you have smooth clay walls, the little creatures of the prairie still think of this hill as their home too. You have found some small friends to share your space with. In a house made of grass and dirt, you are never truly by yourself. Tiny beetles, crickets, and sometimes even a clever field mouse will find their way through the thick sod. They live in the cracks and the roots of your ceiling. To them, your house is just a very large, warm tunnel. At first, this might make you feel a bit jumpy, but soon you get used to the company. You learn that as long as you keep your food in tin boxes, the little visitors are just part of the life of the plains. A simple historical fact about life in a Soddy is that the ceiling was the busiest place in the house. Because the roof was made of brush and hay, bits of dirt and small bugs would sometimes fall down. To stop this from happening, pioneers would take a large piece of white cloth, like muslin or an old sheet, and tack it to the rafters. This was called a ceiling cloth. It caught the dust and the spiders before they could land in your hair or your dinner. When the cloth got too dirty, you would just unpin it, shake it out outside, and put it back up. You reach up and touch your own ceiling cloth. You find a microhistory detail, a muslin scrap. This is a piece of plain, unbleached cotton cloth. It feels soft and a bit fuzzy under your fingers. You can see the shadow of a small beetle walking across the top side of the cloth. It looks like a tiny dark star moving across a white sky. You watch it for a minute, amused by its busy legs. It doesn't know you are there. It is just going about its nightly work. You stop for a moment of reflection. The room is very still. and the light from your small lamp is dim. You look at the tiny beetle on the cloth. You think about how big the world is outside the giant wind, the endless grass, and the cold stars. But here, under this roof, life is small and simple. You feel a strange sense of kindness toward the little creatures. You are both just trying to stay warm and safe. You realize that you are not an owner of this land. You are just a guest in a very big house. The beetles and the mice were here long before you, and they will be here long after. The silence is filled with these tiny secret sounds. You can hear a cricket chirping from behind a clay brick. It is a cheerful, steady sound. It makes the dugout feel less like a cave and more like a cozy nest. You feel a deep sense of peace. You don't need to be afraid of the wild things when you are living right in the middle of them. You have made a deal with the earth. It gives you a home, and you share that home with the life that was already there. You think about the night shift of the animals. While you sleep, the owls are hunting, the foxes are prowling, and the mice are gathering seeds. The world never truly stops. It just changes its pace. You feel like a watchman for all of them. You are the giant who keeps the fire going, providing a little bit of extra warmth for everyone in the hill. It is a heavy responsibility, but it is a good one. You pull your blanket tighter and close your eyes. You listen to the scritch scratch and the soft chirp. It is a comforting rhythm. It tells you that the world is alive and well. You are tucked into the heart of the prairie, surrounded by your tiny neighbors. The wind may roar above, but down here in the dark, the small lives are continuing their work. You feel safe, you feel warm, and you feel very much at home. The watchman is settling in for the rest of the night. The ceiling cloth is holding steady, and the fire is a low, red glow. You drift towards sleep, listening to the heartbeat of the hill. You have found your place in the circle of life on the plains. You are just another creature, finding rest in the deep, kind earth. The world outside has turned into a wall of white. Winter has arrived on the Great Plains, and it is unlike any winter you have ever known. It did not come with a gentle dusting of snow, it came with a blizzard. The wind has picked up the fine, powdery snow and turned it into a thick cloud that hides the sun. You cannot see the wagon. You cannot see the horizon. You can only see the swirling white just outside your oiled paper window. The temperature has dropped so low that the moisture in your breath turns to tiny crystals of ice before it even leaves your mouth. Inside the dugout, however, something wonderful is happening. The deep winter is where the architecture of survival truly proves its worth. While a wooden cabin would be shaking and drafty, your earthen home is as steady as a mountain. The thick walls of Nebraska marble and the heavy roof are holding the heat of your small stove like a warm hug. You can hear the wind screaming above the roof, but inside, the air is still and quiet. You are living in a fortress of reliability. A simple historical fact about these winters is that the snow could sometimes bury a dugout completely. Because the house is built into the side of a hill, the drifting snow would often blow right over the top and fill the front doorway. Families would sometimes wake up to find their window completely dark because of the snow piled against it. They would have to dig their way out from the inside, carving a tunnel through the white wall just to reach the air. It sounds scary, but the snow actually acted like a second blanket, adding even more insulation to keep the house warm. You move to your stove and add a few more buffalo chips. You feel the heavy, dry heat of the iron. You find a microhistory detail in your hand, a foot warmer. This is a small metal box with a wooden frame and a handle. Inside the box is a little tray for hot coals from your stove. You place the coals inside, shut the lid, and put your feet on top of the warm metal. The heat travels through your thick wool socks and into your tired toes. It is a simple tool, but in a winter where the floor can be freezing cold, it is the most important thing you own. You stop for a moment of reflection. You sit in your chair with your feet on the warmer and listen to the storm. You think about the sheer power of the cold. Out there, nothing can survive for long without shelter. The grass is buried, the birds have flown south, and the big animals are huddling in the drawers. But you are here, in the heart of the hill, drinking a cup of hot water and feeling perfectly safe. You feel a deep humility. You didn't conquer this land, you simply found a way to hide from its anger. You feel a great respect for the earth that is protecting you. The silence in the room is very deep. The sound of the wind is muffled, like a distant roar of a sea. You realize that you have become a master of the night shift. While the world outside is frozen and dark, you have created a small circle of light and life. You are the guardian of this warmth. You feel a sense of peace that comes from knowing you are prepared. You have your fuel, you have your food, and you have your thick, kind walls. You think about the time passing. In the dark of the winter, days and nights can blend together. You keep track of the time by the steady burning of your chips and the rhythm of your own breath. You are not lonely. You have the company of the fire and the steady, solid feeling of the ground. You are part of the hill now, waiting out the long sleep of the world. You reach out and touch the clay wall. It is not cold to the touch. It is soaked up the warmth of the room. You realize that your house is like a large battery, storing the heat of the day to keep you safe through the long, freezing night. You feel a deep gratitude for the simple wisdom of the people who taught you how to build this way. They knew that the best way to survive the plains was to go deep, where the ice cannot reach. The watchman is settled in. The storm may rage for days, but the fire is banked and the door is bolted. You are safe in your fortress of dirt. You close your eyes and let the warmth of the foot warmer spread through your body. The winter is long, but you are longer. You are the one who stayed. You are the one who is home. The storm has finally passed, leaving the world quiet and blindingly white. The sun is out, reflecting off the snow like a million tiny mirrors. You have dug your way out of the front door, carving a path through the tall drift that reached halfway up the hill. Now that you are out, you realize how much you miss the sound of another human voice. On the plains, you can go weeks without seeing another soul. But today, you see a thin trail of blue smoke rising into the cold air from a spot a few miles away. That is your neighbor's chimney. Today, you are going to walk across the grass to help a friend. Walking in the deep winter is hard work. You have to lift your knees high to get through the drifts. You are wearing your greatcoat. This is a very heavy, long coat made of thick grey wool. It has a double layer over the shoulders to keep the snow from soaking through. The wool is scratchy against your neck, but it is the only thing that keeps the biting frost from reaching your heart. Every step is a struggle, but you have a sense of purpose. You are carrying a small bundle in your arms, a few extra buffalo chips, and a small loaf of bread you baked on your stove. A simple historical fact about these visits is that they were a lifeline. Neighbors lived far apart, sometimes a 2-hour walk or a half-day ride away. But when the big storms came, people made a point to check on each other. If you didn't see smoke from a neighbor's house for a day, you went to check. It was an unwritten rule of the plains. You were responsible for the people within your reach. This kindness was the only thing that made the radical adaptation of the frontier possible. You weren't just surviving alone. You were part of a hidden web of people living in the dirt. You reach the neighbor's dugout. From the outside, it looks like nothing more than a white bump in the snow. If it weren't for the smoke, you might have walked right over the roof. You find the path they have dug and knock on the heavy wooden door. Clap, clap, clap. The sound is muffled by the snow. The door opens, and the warmth of their fire spills out into the cold air. The look of joy on your friend's face is worth the long, cold walk. You step inside, and the smell of coffee and damp wool greets you. You find a micro-history detail on their table, a coffee grinder. This is a small wooden box with a metal handle on top and a little drawer at the bottom. Since real coffee beans are expensive and hard to find, your neighbor is grinding up dried bits of chicory root and roasted rye. It isn't real coffee, but when it is boiled in a pot, it is hot, dark, and bitter. It warms your hands as you hold the tin mug. You sit on a bench and talk about the storm, the cattle, and the coming spring. You stop for a moment of reflection. The room is small and crowded, full of the sounds of children and the sizzle of the fire. It is a big change from the deep silence of your own home. You look at the walls of this dugout. They're just like yours, thick brown, unreliable. You realize that all across this giant empty land, there are little pockets of life like this, hidden under the earth. You feel a deep sense of connection. You are not a lonely watcher in the dark. You are part of a quiet army of people who have chosen to make the earth their home. The silence of the walk back is different. It doesn't feel lonely anymore. It feels peaceful. You look at your own footprints in the snow, a long line of dark spots stretching back to the horizon. You think about how important a single visit can be. In the city, you might pass 1,000 people and never say a word. Here, a single conversation is a treasure you will keep in your mind for weeks. You feel a sense of strength. You know that if you ever get into trouble, that thin trail of smoke in the distance means help is never too far away. As you reach your own hill, the sun is starting to set, turning the snow a soft purple color. You climb down into your path and enter your home. The quiet of your dugout feels good now. It is the quiet of a place you have made safe. You put your greatcoat on its hook and sit by the stove. You think about the chicory coffee and the sound of your friends' laugh. You realize that survival is not just about food and fuel. It is about the people you choose to look after. The night shift is easier when you know someone else is watching the horizon too. You feel a deep gratitude for the long walk and the cold air. It reminded you that you are part of something bigger than just your own little hill. The watchman is home. The fire is low and the room is warm. You close your eyes and feel the weight of the day's work in your legs. It was a good day. You have seen a friend, you have shared your bread, and you have proven that the snow cannot keep the world apart. The earth is holding you, and the community of the plains is keeping you whole. The white snow of winter has finally melted, leaving the ground wet and soft. But the gentle spring did not last long. Now, the sun is high and fierce. It is the middle of summer on the Great Plains, and the heat is like a heavy weight pressing down on the grass. Outside, the air is thick and still. The cicadas are making a loud, buzzing noise that sounds like heat itself. If you stand out in the field, the sun burns through your shirt in minutes, and the wind feels like the breath of a hot oven. But as you step through your wooden door and into the dugout, the world changes. You don't need to fan yourself or splash water on your face. The air inside is wonderfully cool. It feels like stepping into a deep, shaded forest or a stone cellar. While the thermometer outside might say it is 100 degrees, inside your home of earth, it feels like a soft spring morning. This is the magic of the architecture of survival. The same thick walls that kept the frost out in the winter are now keeping the fire of the sun away. A simple historical fact about these homes is that they were the best ice boxes on the plains. Because the earth stays at a steady temperature all year round, the dugout would stay cool even during the most brutal heat waves. Pioneers would often bring their milk, butter, and eggs inside to keep them from spoiling. In a land where there was no ice to be found for hundreds of miles, the cool dirt of a sod house was the only way to keep food fresh. It was a natural refrigerator that cost nothing to run. You walk over to a small shelf in the corner. You find a micro-history detail, a butter churn. This is a tall wooden bucket with a long stick called a dasher poking out of the top. You've been moving the stick up and down for an hour, turning heavy cream into thick yellow butter. The wood of the churn feels cool to the touch because of the air in the room. You lift the lid and see the fresh butter floating in the buttermilk. Because of the coolness of your dugout, the butter is firm and sweet, not melted into a yellow oil like it would be in a wooden cabin. You stop for a moment of reflection. You sit on the cool dirt floor and lean your head against the clay wall. You close your eyes. The buzzing of the bugs outside sounds very far away. You can hear the slow drip drop of water from a wet cloth you have hung over the window to keep the air moist. You feel a deep sense of relief. The summer on the plains can be a mean thing, drying up the creeks and browning the grass. But here you are safe. You feel a great respect for the humbleness of the dirt. It doesn't look fancy, but it is kinder to you than the most expensive wood or stone. The silence is deep and refreshing. You realize that you have outsmarted the sun. You have found a way to be comfortable when the rest of the world is sweltering. You feel a sense of harmony with the land. You are not fighting the seasons. You are moving with them. In the winter, you use the earth's warmth. In the summer, you use its coolness. You are like a seed waiting in the ground for the right time to grow. You think about the night shift again. In the summer, the real work happens in the early morning and the late evening when the sun is low. The middle of the day is a time for the watchman to rest and stay out of the glare. You feel a sense of peace in this forced quiet. It gives you time to think and to be still. You are learning that survival is not just about working hard. It is about knowing when to hide and when to wait. You take a small piece of the cool butter and spread it on a bit of leftover bread. It tastes like heaven. You look at your oiled paper window. It is glowing with a bright white light, but the heat cannot get through. You feel a deep gratitude for your little hill. It is a place of shadows and cool air in a world that is burning. The watchman is resting. The sun is blazing above, but the earth is holding you in its cool, dark hands. You are safe, you are comfortable, and you are ready for the long, hot afternoon. You have learned the secrets of the seasons, and your home of sod is the best friend you could have on a summer day. The summer heat has a way of making the land thirsty. You look out at the horizon, and the air seems to shimmer and shake like a curtain of clear silk. The grass is no longer bright green. It is the color of old straw. The small creek where you found your roof poles has dried up into a line of cracked mud. On the plains, the sun can be a thief, stealing every drop of moisture from the ground. Today you must find a way to get to the water that the sun cannot reach. You are going to dig a well. Water is the most important thing on the night shift of the frontier. You can live in a house of dirt, and you can burn the waste of the field, but you cannot survive without a drink. You have chosen a spot near the bottom of your south-facing slope. You are not looking for a river or a pond. You are looking for the hidden river that flows deep under the grass. To find it, you must go down through the layers of sand and stone until you reach the cool, wet heart of the land. You take your spade and a heavy iron bucket. You also have a long coil of thick hemp rope. Digging a well is a slow and dangerous job. You start by cutting a circle into the sod, just like you did for your dugout. You dig down 5 feet, then 10. As you go deeper, the world above starts to disappear. You are standing in a narrow tube of earth. The air down here is damp and smells like wet stone. You have to fill the bucket with dirt and then climb out to pull the bucket up with the rope. It is a long day of climbing and lifting. A simple historical fact about these wells is that they had to be very deep. On the Great Plains, the water was often 30 or even 100 feet below the surface. That is like digging a hole as deep as a 10-story building. Because the walls of the well were made of loose sand or soft clay, they could cave in and trap a person. To prevent this, pioneers would often line the well. They would use stones or even extra bricks of Nebraska marble to build a round wall inside the hole, holding the earth back so the water could stay clean and the well would stay open. You find a microhistory detail at the bottom of your hole, a well point. This is a heavy piece of iron that looks like a large, sharp needle. It has tiny holes in the sides covered with a fine wire mesh. You use a heavy wooden mallet to drive this iron point into the bottom of your well. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoes in the small space. When the point hits the water, the mesh lets the liquid in but keeps the sand out. You feel the iron sink into something soft and cold. You have found it. You stop for a moment of reflection. You are standing at the bottom of your deep, dark hole. You look up, and the opening of the well looks like a tiny, bright blue star far above your head. It is very quiet down here. You can hear the sound of your own breathing and the slow drip, drip of water into the iron point. You feel very small, but you also feel a great sense of wonder. You are standing in a place where the sun has never reached. You are touching the old water that has been hidden for thousands of years. You feel a deep gratitude for the land. Even when it looks dry and dead on the surface, it is holding a treasure deep inside just for you. The silence is cool and heavy. You realize that this water is the lifeblood of your home. Without it, the garden would wither and the oxen would thirsty. You feel like a successful hunter. You haven't caught an animal, but you have caught the most valuable thing on the plains. You take a small tin cup from your belt and dip it into the first bit of water that is pooled at the bottom. The water is so cold it makes your teeth ache. It tastes like minerals and earth. It is the best drink you have ever had. You climb back up the rope, hand over hand, until you reach the bright, hot world of the surface. Your clothes are covered in wet clay, and your muscles are shaking from the climb. But you look down into the dark hole and see the reflection of the sky and the water at the bottom. You have finished the hardest task. You have brought the deep water to the light. You build a small wooden frame over the top of the well and attach a pulley. This is a small wheel that helps the rope slide easily. Now when you need water, you just drop the bucket and pull. You hear the splash far below, and then the steady clink-clink of the bucket hitting the sides as it comes back up. You feel a sense of security. No matter how hot the sun gets, you have a cool well to keep you alive. The watchman is tired and muddy, but he is no longer worried about the drought. You have connected your home to the deep rivers of the earth. You sit by the well and watch the sunset, holding a cup of cold, clear water. You have mastered the layers of the land, and the night shift is a little easier now that you have a wellspring of your own. The heat of the summer has finally broken, and a gentle rain has fallen over the land. Today, as you walk up the slope toward your home, you see something that makes you stop and smile. Your house is no longer a brown mound of dirt. The living roof has truly come to life. Over the last few months, the seeds that were hidden in the Nebraska marble have woken up. Now, a sea of bright, colourful flowers is waving in the wind right over your head. It looks as if the prairie has decided to give your house a crown. You climb up the side of the hill and stand on the edge of your roof. The grass is thick and green, but it is the flowers that catch your eye. There are bright yellow sunflowers with dark centers and purple coneflowers that look like tiny umbrellas. There are even little white daisies that dance when the breeze blows. The roots of these plants are digging deep into the sod bricks, weaving them together even tighter than before. Your roof is not just a ceiling anymore, it is a hanging garden. A simple historical fact about these garden roofs is that they were very common on the plains. Because the soil in the sod bricks was so rich and had never been farmed, it was full of ancient seeds. When you put those bricks on your roof and gave them a little bit of rain, they would explode with life. Some pioneers even planted real vegetables up there, like onions or small radishes, to keep them away from the hungry cows. It was the first kind of green roof in the world, keeping the house cool in the sun and making it look beautiful at the same time. You bend down to pick a small bunch of the flowers. You find a microhistory detail in your hand, a pocket knife. This is a small folding knife with a bone handle and a sharp steel blade. Every pioneer carries one. You use it to trim the stems of the sunflowers so you can take them inside. The blade is thin and smooth, and it slices through the green stalks easily. You feel the sticky sap of the plants on your fingers. It has a fresh, spicy smell that stays with you all day. You stop for a moment of reflection. You sit on the edge of the roof with your feet dangling over the front door. You look out over the vast rolling grass. The whole world is moving in the wind, and your house is moving with it. You feel a deep sense of beauty. You realize that you didn't just build a shelter. You built something that the land has accepted. The flowers are a sign that the prairie is happy with your work. You are not a scar on the land anymore. You are part of the meadow itself. The silence is filled with the soft buzz of bees visiting the flowers on your roof. They are busy gathering nectar, and they don't mind that you are sitting right there. You feel a sense of harmony. You think about how people in the city spend so much money on paint and decorations to make their houses look nice. Here, the earth does the decorating for you, and it changes its colors with every season. You feel very rich, even if you don't have a penny in your pocket. You realize that the night shift is not just about survival and hard work. It is also about noticing the small, beautiful things that happen when you work with nature. You have learned that if you treat the earth with respect, it will give you beauty in return. You feel a sense of peace that fills up your chest. You are the watchman of the flowering castle. You climb down and go inside, carrying the flowers. You put them in a small tin cup on your table. Even in the dim light of the dugout, the yellow petals seem to glow. They bring the scent of the wide open world into your small room. You feel a deep gratitude for the radical adaptation that led you here. You have learned to live in the ground, and in return the ground has given you a garden. The watchman is content. The sun is setting, and the flowers on the roof are closing their petals for the night. You are safe in your hill, under a blanket of green and gold. You have turned the dirt into a place of wonder, and your heart is as light as the seeds blowing in the wind. The purple shadows of the evening are filling the corners of your dugout. Outside, the world is fading into a deep, quiet blue. The sun has gone down, and the wind has died away to a soft whisper. Inside, it is very dark. You can no longer see the smooth grey of your clay walls or the grain of your wooden table. To keep the night shift going, you need to bring a little bit of the sun inside. You are going to light your small lamp. In a house made of earth, light is a precious thing. You do not have gas pipes or wires for electricity. You have to make your own light, just as you made your own walls and your own roof. You reach for your lamp sitting on the shelf. It is a grease lamp, one of the simplest and oldest ways to push back the dark. It is a small iron bowl with a long handle and a little spout on one side. It looks a bit like a tiny teapot without a lid. You fill the bowl with lard, which is just thick, white fat from a pig or a cow. You have a wick made from a twisted piece of old cotton cloth. You soak the wick in the grease and lay it so the tip pokes out of the spout. You strike a match and touch the flame to the cloth. At first, it just flickers and smokes, but then it catches. A small, steady yellow flame begins to glow. It doesn't light up the whole room like a big fire, but it creates a warm circle of light around you. A simple historical fact about these lamps is that they were often called slush lamps. Because they burned animal fat, they could be a bit smelly and smoky. If you didn't have lard, you might use the grease left over from cooking your meat. It was a very cheap way to have light, but it required a lot of cleaning. You had to trim the wick every few minutes with a pair of scissors to keep the flame from getting too big and making black soot all over your nice clay walls. You find a microhistory detail in your hand, a wick trimmer. This is a small tool that looks like a pair of scissors, but it has a tiny box on one side to catch the burnt bits of the cloth so they don't fall into the grease. You snip the end of the wick, and the flame becomes bright and clear again. The metal of the trimmer is cool and heavy. You like the steady snip-snip sound it makes. It is one of the small rhythms of the night that makes you feel in control of your world. You stop for a moment of reflection. You sit at your table and watch the tiny flame dance. It is so small compared to the giant darkness outside, but it is enough. It shows you the edge of your bowl, the shape of your hand, and the words on the page of your book. You feel a deep sense of safety. You realize that a little bit of light goes a long way when the world is truly dark. You feel a connection to all the people throughout history who have sat by a small lamp to keep the night at bay. You are not just a person in a hole, you are a keeper of the flame. The silence is very soft and heavy. You can hear the tiny sizzle of the grease as it burns. The light makes long, soft shadows move across the ceiling cloth. It makes the dugout feel very small and very cozy. You realize that you don't need 100 candles to feel happy. You just need enough light to see the things you love. You feel a peace that is as steady as the yellow flame. You think about the watchman duty. Even in the middle of the night, this little light is a sign that someone is home. It is a sign that life is continuing, even when the rest of the world is asleep. You feel proud of your little lamp. It is a humble thing, made of iron and fat, but it is your sun for the night. You pick up your book and read a few lines by the golden glow. The words seem more important when they're the only thing you can see. You feel a deep gratitude for the simple tools that make this life possible. You have your walls, your fire, your walls, and now your light. You have everything a person needs to be whole. The watchman is settling in. The lamp is burning steady and the shadows are still. You are safe in your fortress of dirt, and the small light is your companion. You feel the weight of the day's work leaving your body, and the quiet of the night taking its place. The night is quiet, and the stars are out in their thousands. You step outside for one last look at the horizon before you tuck yourself in for the night. As you stand on the slope of your hill, you look down at your home. In the moonlight, the dugout is nearly invisible. It blends perfectly into the curves of the earth. You realize that you haven't just built a house. You have built a house-built, a fortress of reliability. This little mound of dirt is your shield against the world. It is a place that stays unmoved while everything else on the prairie changes. Back in the towns, houses are made of thin wood and held together with nails. When the great hurricane force winds come screaming across the grass, those wooden houses groan and shake. Sometimes the wind catches under the roof and lifts the whole building into the air, scattering the boards like dry leaves. But your home is different, because it is made of the land itself. The wind has nothing to grip. It simply rolls over the top of you. You are as safe as a stone at the bottom of a river. A simple historical fact about these earthen fortresses is that they were very hard for enemies to find. Whether it was a predator looking for a meal or a stranger with a bad heart, the dugout stayed hidden. Because the roof was covered in the same grass as the field, someone could walk within 20 feet of your front door and never know you were there. It offered a unique sense of security that no tall building could ever provide. You were part of the landscape, hidden in plain sight, protected by the very skin of the world. You reach out and pat the thick sod wall next to your door. You find a microhistory detail, a picket pin. This is a long, heavy iron spike with a ring at the top. During the day, you use it to tie your oxen to a long rope so they can eat the grass without wandering away. At night, you drive the pin deep into the hard-packed earth near your door. It is a solid, heavy piece of metal that feels cold in the night air. It is another anchor, another way of saying that you are staying put. You like the weight of it in your hand. You stop for a moment of reflection. You lean your back against the hill and look at the vast empty space around you. For the first time, the great American desert doesn't feel like an enemy. It feels like a protector. You realize the true strength isn't about being big or loud. It is about being able to adapt. You didn't try to force a city house onto the plains. You listened to what the land wanted. You became humble, and in return, the earth became your fortress. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are small, but you are steady. The silence of the night is absolute. There are no trees to rustle, only the low hum of the air moving over the grass. You feel like you are the only person in the world, but you are not lonely. You are part of the hill. You are part of the roots and the clay and the deep, old water. You feel a sense of security that goes all the way down to your bones. You know that as long as this hill stands, you have a home. You think about the storms that will come and the fires that might sweep through the grass. You know your house will be there when the smoke clears. It is resistant to the prairie's most devastating elements. It is a place of reliability in a world that is always moving. You feel a great pride in your Nebraska marble. It might be just dirt to some, but to you, it is the strongest wall in the world. You walk back inside and slide the wooden bolt into place. The room is warm and the air is still. You feel the weight of the hill above you, and it feels like a heavy, protective hand. You are the watchman of this fortress, and the watch is easy when your walls are made of the earth. You lie down and feel the stillness of the ground. You are safe. You are home. The watchman is closing the gate. The fortress is secure, and the night is kind. You drift towards sleep, knowing that you have found the secret to surviving the wild. You didn't conquer the land, you joined it. And because of that, you will remain unmoved, no matter how hard the wind blows. The night is at its deepest point now. This is the hour when the world feels most like a dream. You step out from the low doorway of your home and stand on the quiet grass. The air is perfectly still, and the chill has softened into a gentle coolness. You look up, and your breath catches in your throat. Without the lights of a city or the branches of trees to block the view, the sky is a vast, sparkling ocean of stars. It is the night shift in its most beautiful form. You are looking at the same stars that have watched over the plains for thousands of years. The stars are so bright and so many that they seem to cast a soft, silvery glow over the yellow grass. You can see the dark shape of your wagon and the soft curve of your hill. The Milky Way stretches from one side of the world to the other, looking like a long, white cloud made of diamond dust. On the plains, the sky is not just something above you. It is something you are inside of. You feel as if you are standing on the very edge of the universe, looking out into the great forever. A simple historical fact about the Prairie Night is that it was the only map many people had. Before there were roads or fences, travelers would use the stars to find their way across the empty grass. The North Star was a constant friend, always staying in the same spot to show the way home. Pioneers would learn the shapes of the stars, the Big Dipper, the Hunter, and the Great Bear, and use them to tell the time and the seasons. The sky was their clock, their map, and their giant glowing book. You find a micro-history detail in your hand, a brass spyglass. This is a small folding telescope made of shiny yellow metal and glass lenses. It feels heavy and cold in your palm. You pull it open with a soft click and hold it to your eye. When you look at the moon through the glass, you can see the deep craters and the high mountains on its surface. It looks so close you feel as if you could reach out and touch the cold grey dust. You feel a sense of wonder. Even though you live in a house of dirt, your mind can travel to the stars. You stop for a moment of reflection. You sit down on the grass and let the silence wash over you. The stars are so quiet. They don't make a sound as they move across the sky. You think about how big the world is and how small your little dugout must look from up there. But you don't feel unimportant. You feel like you belong here. You are a part of this giant moving system of grass and earth and light. You realize that the architecture of survival wasn't just about keeping the wind out. It was about giving you a place to stand so you could look at the stars in peace. The silence is very deep and kind. You can hear the very faint sound of a cricket, but it is far away. The stillness of the night makes you feel as if you were the only person who is awake to see this magic. You feel a deep sense of gratitude. You have worked hard, you have dug deep, and you have built a life from nothing. And now the reward is this, a front row seat to the beauty of the world. You are the watchman of the universe, standing on your little patch of Nebraska marble. You think about the people who will one day live here, in houses made of wood and glass. They might have bright lights that hide the stars. You feel a little bit sorry for them. They will never know the deep, velvety black of a true prairie night. They will never know the feeling of being completely alone with the sky. You breathe in the cold, clean air and feel a sense of wealth that has nothing to do with money. You have the stars, and they are enough. You fold your spyglass and put it back in your pocket. You take one last look at the Big Dipper hanging over your roof. It looks like a giant silver ladle, ready to dip into the darkness. You feel a sense of completion. The night is almost over, and you have seen its greatest treasure. You walk back toward your door, your feet feeling light on the soft earth. The watchman is heading back to the warmth. The stars are still shining, and the world is at peace. You slide the bolt into place and crawl into your bed of husks. You close your eyes, but the image of the silver sky is still behind your eyelids. You feel safe, you feel small, and you feel very, very lucky. The darkness of the night is starting to thin. The deep, velvety black is turning into a soft charcoal grey. You wake up before the sun, feeling the stillness of the room. The air inside the dugout is warm and smells of the last few embers in the stove. You have reached the end of your long watch. You have seen the grass in the wind, the rain on the roof, and the stars in the deep sky. Today you are going to watch the world wake up for a new season. You pull on your boots and your heavy wool coat. You open the wooden door, and the first light of the morning touches your face. It is a very pale pink light, like the inside of a seashell. The frost is back on the grass, making every blade look like it has been dipped in silver. You walk up the slope of your hill and stand on the very top, right above your flowering roof. You are standing on your home, looking out at the birth of a new day. A simple historical fact about the end of the dugout era is that these homes didn't just disappear. As the years went by and the pioneers grew more successful, they built bigger houses of wood and stone nearby. But they often kept the old dugout as a cellar or a place to stay safe from big storms. They never forgot that the earth was the first thing to give them a home. They learned that true strength lies in the ability to adapt to the rules of the land. They didn't change the prairie, they let the prairie change them. You reach into your pocket and find your most precious microhistory detail, a brass compass. This is a small, round box with a glass top and a tiny needle that always points north. You hold it in your hand and watch the needle wobble and then stop. It is a symbol of your journey. It led you across the empty miles to this very spot. You rub the smooth brass with your thumb. You don't need the compass to find your way anymore. You know exactly where you are. You are home. You stop for a final moment of reflection. The sun begins to peek over the edge of the world. It is a giant glowing red ball that turns the golden grass into a sea of fire. You watch the light spread across the land, chasing away the shadows. You feel a deep sense of pride. You have survived the night shift of the frontier. You have turned a hole in the ground into a fortress of reliability. You have woven your life into the roots of the grass. You realize that you are not just a person living on the plains. You are a part of the plains. You are as steady as the hill and as deep as the well. The silence of the morning is full of hope. You hear the first song of a meadowlark, a bright, clear whistle that rings across the grass. You feel a sense of peace that is as wide as the horizon. You have done the hard work. You have built the walls, found the water, and kept the fire. You have proven that a person can thrive by cooperating with the earth. You feel very strong and very quiet and very ready for whatever the new day brings. You look down at your dugout. The chimney is starting to send up a thin line of blue smoke as the fire wakes up. The oiled paper window is glowing with the morning light. It is a humble place, but it is a perfect place. You have learned the most important lesson of the frontier, that the land is not an enemy to be beaten, but a partner to be loved. You feel a deep gratitude for every brick of Nebraska marble and every drop of deep water. The world is wide and bright now. The shadows are gone and the long night is over. You take a deep breath of the cold, sweet air. You feel the warmth of the sun on your skin. You are the watchman, and your watch has been a good one. You have seen the beauty in the dirt and the light in the dark. You are ready to step into the morning. The air is getting softer now. The long journey across the grass is coming to a quiet end. You can feel the warmth of the rising sun through the walls of your home, and the world is settling into a peaceful rhythm. You are safe. You are warm. The wind is slow to a whisper, and the heavy weight of the earth is holding you steady. There is nothing left to do but rest. The work is finished, the fire is banked, and the stars have given way to the light. You can let go of the day now, knowing that your fortress is strong and the land is kind. You are exactly where you are meant to be. The sun is rising, the gates are opening, the watch is ended,